Hey everybody, welcome back to Movie Master, where we rank, review, trailer act, and talk news about movies, TV shows, and sometimes video games. So today we're going to be ranking Phase 2 of the MCU from worst to best. Now, remember, this is my opinion, and again, this is all just my opinion. And again, I don't know why I'm saying this, because these are like 9, 8, 7, 6, 7, like, year-old movies. But spoilers if you haven't seen any of these movies. This goes from Iron Man 3 to Ant-Man. Now remember, this is indeed my opinion, so if you have your own rankings, list them down in the comments below and tell me, do you have a favorite Phase 2 movie between Iron Man 3 and Ant-Man? And once I list the movies in between, tell me what you think and what your movie you have in the comments that's your favorite or your least. And how would you rank them? And tell me in the comments below. Nonetheless, let's get on with it. In at number 6 in dead last place, in my opinion, as the worst Phase 2 film and the worst MCU film as a whole, Thor: The Dark World. This movie was underwhelming as hell. This movie was boring. I'm not joking. This movie was boring. The only good things about this movie is the fact that Loki and Thor have a better relationship in this movie, and it excels in that area. Jane and Thor done well. All the characters returning from Thor 1 have done graciously well, except for Thor, who is really, really boring in this movie. Now, if you've seen the last video, you remember me mentioning that Thor 1 was directed by Kenneth Branagh, and then he didn't return for it. So as you guys know, and I told you this in the last video, and people may not know about this, Kenneth Branagh, the guy who starred in the Harry Potter movies as Gilderoy Lockhart, and who's directed many films, directed Thor 2. He put a very Shakespearean-like, very adapting the very Norse god mythology-like ideas of the Thor film, and did not bother returning for Thor: The Dark World because he felt like that, yeah, like it was getting a bit tiring for him to do this, and like, nah, man, like, yeah, he just felt tired, and all the work and effort is very tiring, so he decided to just not do the sequel and handed it over to Patty Jenkins, who's an up and coming director, getting really big with the directing world. And had she directed this, it would have been the first superhero film directed by a female woman. So yeah, and overall, yeah, and even Natalie Portman first advocated for Patty Jenkins to direct this film. Now, she was having a much different story in mind, but Marvel wanted the story that we got in the film. Eventually, she disagreed with them and realized that had she made this movie, nobody would put her as a director, especially since she was a woman. Because, well, if she was a male, people would have went, made one bad movie, let's move them on. If it was female, went, nah, she fucked up too much, kick her out of Hollywood, she sucks balls. Please take that as a silly little side joke. I don't really tell good jokes, and I just include it because it's my way of saying things. But overall, after leaving this, they brought on Alan Taylor. Now, he has made some good movies, but when he directed the film, he said he had a very terrible experience making the film. And while making it, after making it, it was rewritten and re-altered several times during post-production. Because a movie that is filmed and a movie that is released are very different, because once they go through post-production, the directors often don't get access to go through and help with that. More than the studios get control over what happens in that post-production room. Movies like many other superhero movies like Fantastic, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and 1 films all went through that trouble, except the one that really got the worst stick of it was indeed Fantastic and Amazing Spider-Man 2. And Thor: The Dark was unfortunately another sufferer of that many alterations were made to the film. But another factor to continue on is that Alan Taylor, well, Patty Jenkins went on to direct Wonder Woman, which is one of the highest rated films, which is one of the most favored and popular superhero movies of all time. When Alan Taylor went on to direct Terminator Genisys, which is regarded as one of the worst entries in the Terminator franchise, and is regarded as a very meh movie. This movie was boring. Plain and simple, it was pretty boring and made Thor an even more boring character. It did nothing interesting with him, and one of the really only funny moments of the film is when Thor puts his hammer on a coat rack. And the only reasons you need to watch is 1, if you're a Thor fan and you want to see the sequel, 2, the Reality Stone, and 3, if you want to continue on an MCU marathon or add it to your MCU collection. Those are the only 3 reasons I can even think of to want to watch it, or you actually think it's a masterpiece. To those, I don't mind if you think Thor 2 is a masterpiece, but my God, this is a terrible movie. I rewatched it and it still sucks balls. I can see why my mum likes it, but besides the Norse mythology expansion and Jane and Thor and Loki and Thor and Frigga's death and Another bad part of this movie is Malekith. My God, Malekith. I've asked many people who like the MCU, do they even know his name is? None of them. Everybody forgot his name and forgot what the hell his motivation was even was. I somehow remember. The villain's name is Malekith. He's a guy from the elf world, whatever the hell it's called. He's a dark elf. Basically, they wanted the universe to stay in darkness with the ether. But Bor, Thor's grandfather and Odin's father, made sure to take them down, send the ether to another dimension, and destroy their army. But Malekith escaped. What was his motivation? He wanted the Reality Stone so he can return the world back into darkness, instead of keeping it in the light and color like it is, well, in real life and in the MCU. Obviously, Thor stops him and defeats him, and yeah. And as many of you may not know, the Ninth Doctor actor Christopher Eccleston, who played the Ninth Doctor in the 2005 revival of Doctor Who for the first season and is now reprising the role in a new audio drama by Big Finish, played this role. Although originally they wanted Benedict Cumberbatch to play the role, but he thought, nah, I'll save up on Malekith and went, how about we go to another one? And in the end, it was way better. Continuing, Thor the Dark was underwhelming, but nah, I could handle it. Continuing on, in at number 5 is Iron Man 3. Now, I want to put Iron Man 3 down here. It was honestly underwhelming. Look, to anybody who likes it, I think it's a good movie. Okay, it's a good movie. Do I like Iron Man 2 more than it? Yeah. The things I like about it is I really like Mark 42. I really think it's a good movie. And when it's action, it's awesome. And I love the Mark 42. The Mark 42 is my favorite armor out of all Iron Man's 85 armors. Even the cool nanotech ones. Yeah, I like them, but I've always liked Mark 42. And I've always liked it that the idea of them adding features in the Mark 42, like retractable helmet, Ascension mode, the upgrade features that the future armors have. Yeah. But I feel the problems I have is, well, they don't show us much Iron Man. They show us regular man and don't really show much Iron Man. Another thing that even my teacher, who's somebody I talked to, noted is that, well, his name is Mr. Carroll. He noted that, well, Iron Man's never at his full strength, and this movie is especially to the point. Iron Man was not at all at his full strength in this movie. He has PTSD, which is a real thing that I think is really well adapted in the film. But overall, he's never at full strength. And another annoying plotline I have with this movie is the fact that when his house is going to get attacked, here's the thing. His house will be blown up with missiles and be attacked by a terrorist. But his answer to doing that, instead of putting on the 41 between the Mark II, nearly 41 armors except for the Mark 1 and 2, which completely kaput armors on. Out of all the armors, he chooses to wear the one that is brand new, a prototype, and can't even fight, shoot missiles, or even fly. Now, what the hell, man? Really? Another problem I have with it is that they handled the Mandarin plotline horribly. Anybody who likes the idea of the Mandarin portrayed in this movie with the fact that he's not even a real person had the MCU kept this idea? Yeah, but let's be clear. In my opinion, Iron Man 2, and a bunch of MCU movies before this set up what the 10 Rings was going to be. And then Iron Man 3 went and undercut it like a piece of raw meat and then shoved it into a person's mouth and went, yeah, eat it. That sounds really not that smart. And not really great writing. Overall, it was really done poorly and I didn't like it. Okay? Now, I think the movie's good. When the action's on, action's cool. I think a few scenes like Iron Man trying on the Mark 42 for the first time. The house explosion scene when the mansion explodes. The fight scene when Iron Man tries to escape a bunch of Aldrich Killian's men. Cool. Again, another really underwhelming villain. This was a good re-entry back into the MCU with the beginning of Phase 2, but just overall wasn't really it was meh, and that was all. Thor the Dark World, again, more underwhelming than Iron Man 3. I liked Iron Man 3, but Thor the Dark World. And then number 4 is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, let me be clear here. It's a good movie. It's alright. It has its goods, although for some reason the ending of Iron Man 3 is completely contradicted by this movie. The entire idea of Iron Man is completely contradicted with Avengers Age of Ultron, and not even really made canon, although Iron Man 3 does work as more standalone. But yeah, overall, Avengers Age of Ultron does not it feels really The trailers promised a completely different film. That wasn't the part I cared about, but it was really a overall stage, really misdirected film. It didn't really know what it wanted to be. And it felt like too much of Joss Whedon being controlled by Marvel saying, hey Joss, do this. Hey Joss, do that. Hey Joss, do this. Hey Joss, make this happen. Hey Joss, Captain Marvel. Hey Joss, do this big thing that will set up a whole shit ton of movies that we need. Because Avengers set up an Avengers 2, set up an Infinity War plotline, set up Thor 2, set up Captain America 2, and set up Iron Man 3 all in one go. And that's what eventually followed. And obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy was a out of nowhere movie. Yeah, it was actually really good. Overall, Avengers Age of Ultron just sounded like it was a film that tried its best to do something good, but it was just meh. Quicksilver, again, they been in an underwhelming Quicksilver that was wasted, and just, I get why they killed him up, but it was a wasted character. Wanda, cool character, I like the fact we get more of her, but Quicksilver, yeah. And the fact he's never really referenced or mentioned again in future movies kind of bums me out. But eventually, movies like Ant-Man and Captain America Civil War and later movies kind of redeemed this one. And I will agree, the reason I put it up here and so high is to set up a lot of good plot points in future films. But that's all this Phase 2 seems to be, a bunch of setup. Iron Man 3 introduces just a new, exciting standalone storyline that does a very, very bad job at tying up the Ten Rings plotline in a terrible way. Thor the Dark World expanded on the universe and doing another Infinity Stone link up, but doing terribly as a Thor movie and just felt like a bunch of setup for future films. Captain America the Winter Soldier, one of the only films that works as a movie but progresses the story to Infinity War and Age of Ultron. And then you get Guardians of the Galaxy. Introduces a new area of the MCU, but then when you get to Avengers 2, again, it feels like a bunch of setup. Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Avengers Age of Ultron feel like a bunch of setup that I didn't really need or care about. I didn't mind it, but it felt like more that was setting up a narrative rather than telling a story. And one thing I wish I noted in my last ranking with Iron Man 2 is that it felt more like they were trying to set up a narrative rather than tell a story. It is rare for you to set up a future plot point in the narrative and tell a good story. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is another infamous movie that did that. They tried to push the future narrative, but told a terrible story, and it cut off the entire idea for a cinematic universe revolving around Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Whereas with Marvel, even though Iron Man 2 wasn't the best, I think out of any cluttered superhero movie, it's actually a really good one. Besides Spider-Man 3, those two are actually quite good. Overall, Avengers Age of Ultron was a misdirected film with a bunch of boring bits. It was alright, it felt boring, and all it felt like was a half big fat load of setup, and the other half being a big fat load of just meh. Besides the really great setup they do for Endgame and all that, it's not well. Continuing on, and number 3 is Ant-Man. Now, let me finish, and I really liked Ant-Man. As a kid, I hated Ant-Man. It was 7 years ago. Let's break down what this was. Back in 2015, Ant-Man was the newest MCU film coming out. My mum wanted to see it, and she went, hey, should we go see it? I went, no, I don't want to. He sounds disgusting. I thought Ant-Man was going to be a horror film, okay? I wasn't a fan of ants. I thought Ant-Man was going to be a horror film. I never read the comics at this point, okay? So Gwen Stacy dying in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 felt like a total shocker because I didn't know if that was from the comics because I never knew the comics existed or read them. Same thing with the whole organic webbing changing in Spider-Man. Didn't know that was a thing. The whole Batman idea. I didn't know there were different incarnations of the Batman character. I didn't know there were different incarnations. I thought they were all the same version. I thought Spectacular Spider-Man was Tobey's version. I didn't know what reboots or exactly get what reboots and requels and all that were. I didn't get that what they were. But yeah, it's stuff like this I didn't really get. A few years later, in 2017, I actually watched Ant-Man and really liked it. And I thought, hey, this is cool. And I still have to get it on DVD because I have the sequel on DVD. And I still plan to get this one on DVD. But yeah, overall, I love the film. I really want to get it on DVD. I know I have Disney Plus, but screw it. I still like getting stuff on DVDs. It's a good movie. I like it, but yeah. With that, yeah. I like the movie. I think it's good. Is it better than Ant-Man and the Wasp? At first, I would have disagreed with somebody who would have asked me that, but now I would agree, yeah, it was better than Ant-Man and the Wasp in a way. It was better with some of its storytelling and ideas. And yeah. And number 2 is Guardians of the Galaxy 1. This movie is really unique and cool in the story it tells in the wider, grander MCU, and it tells a really, really awesome story. But, yeah, overall, I really do think Guardians of the Galaxy is a very unique MCU movie within the grander scheme and wider storylines of the MCU. I really do think it does really well with the story. It works as a great story, and it tells a really funny, great story that changed how superhero movies are made. Because before that, they had moments of comedy, but more superhero films before that were much more serious. Comedy was not really a big plot point. After Guardians of the Galaxy, they really got into comedy. Although I think there were times when there were generic comedy movies. I think Ant-Man unfortunately kind of fell in that category where they went leaned too much into his comedy and kind of weakened it. Like it though, but yeah, movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp really lent into the comedy and kind of. But overall, it's very cool action sequences. I love, and my mum even loves them even more than me because she's actually from these eras. She loves the 80s and 90s references and movies and movie references and music. She loves that kind of music. And she loves the references that brings over. And I really do think it's a good movie. Do I think it's the best movie? Nope. That spot goes to number 1. In my opinion, my favorite Phase 2 MC movie, Captain America the Winter Soldier. I've always told people that my favorite Phase 1 film is Avengers 1. My least favorite is Iron Man 2. Not because I don't like it, it's because story-wise it's not great. My least favorite Phase 2 movie is Thor 2. And my favorite Phase 2 movie is The Winter Soldier. This movie does so well at what it's trying to do. It takes such a big part of the MCU. S.H.I.E.L.D., such a great and good ally and a big part of the MCU. From Iron Man to now, is now the villain. We now realize that Hydra, a company from Captain America 1, and soon featured in the Peggy Carter show, is, well, back and alive. And now, it turns out they've been leaking and corrupting S.H.I.E.L.D. And they've infiltrated and compromised S.H.I.E.L.D. this whole time. And it shakes up the movie. And it really goes into political views. And it really pulls into the way that Cap doesn't trust the government. Because before, the government wasn't as big. Either it didn't really exist well, or it just wasn't as big. But now, it's full on. And he makes fair points, like, yes, back in his day, they did what they had to do, but they did it so people could feel free. S.H.I.E.L.D. was making weapons. Nowadays, this is even real life. America and countries are making weapons not because of people's freedom, to put fear into them and others around them, to make themselves feel powerful. And that's what this movie does really well, adapting. It shows how us humans want control and want fear to put all over everything. America at points have wanted to put a cape of fear all over the rest of the world and take a big fat stick, shove it in the earth, and take control of every other country, take control of other countries. That's how America has worked in some time in different points in time. That's how other countries have done it too. They've tried thinking that, hey, we can control the world and they can live in fear while we live in power. It's a thing that I really think Captain America the Winter Soldier does so well at adapting. And really good. And I think it's a really good movie that shakes up the world. Because at first I was going to think, what could my favorite one be? I could think, Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe, but not really. I said it's 2 or 3. Ant-Man, nah, meh. Thor the Dark World, hell no. Avengers 2, nope. And Iron Man 3, never in a million years. So I thought, hey, Captain America the Winter Soldier. I will say, as a kid, I never really liked it. As a 7-year-old kid, I would have never have liked it because what would a 7-year-old kid have interest in politics and the idea of S.H.I.E.L.D. being collapsing? Even now, I don't really care for politics. They bore me and they're too complicated and I don't really care for them. But, my God, like this movie does so well. Not just because of its politics area, but just the story is so amazingly well told. And I really like it. And overall, it's my favorite film in Phase 2. Phase 3, well, that's obviously a favorite film I have in that category, but yeah. Phase 2 is, in my opinion, my favorite MCU. Captain America the Winter Soldier is my favorite Phase 2 MCU movie. And it's actually a really good film. Now, what I really think is that Joe Anthony Russo, the purpose of Joe Johnston's Captain America, and his one time doing it, is he wanted to create a period piece to establish Captain America, tell his origin story, and set him up for the other movies. Anthony and Joe Russo came in to reinvent the series and pretty much show what Cap was like placing him nowadays. Because while the first film showed him back in the 40s, the Avengers never really bothered to explain how he was feeling and how he was doing in these times. And he was more distracted with the Avengers plot and what was happening with Loki. But now, he had time to think about it. How the world had changed nowadays. How it was no longer that time. And how everyone he knew nearly died. And then Bucky, his long-lost friend, comes out of nowhere and reveals, hey, yo, I survived the fall from the train. But I'm brainwashed and I'm evil and now I want to kill you. And that's like really interesting in my opinion. And I think they really do that well. And the way it is done is so well done. Nonetheless, yeah, overall it's a really good movie. It's my favorite movie of Phase 2 and I think it's a really well written and well done film. Overall, it's a good movie, okay? And yeah, and I really do enjoy it. And that's why it's my favorite movie of Phase 2. Now let me know what you guys think Do you agree with me or do you not? Do you like the list I made or do you hate it? Now, tell me your own rankings in the comments below. What is your favorite Phase 2 movie? What is your least favorite? And yes, I forgot to bring up the name of the director for The Incredible Hulk because I was too lazy to search for it while making this video. Now, yes, I made this straight after Phase 1's video, and now I'm going to go filming the next 2 phases video. So yeah. Nonetheless, tell me what you think. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell with the devil's hiding or wherever the hell the devil thing's hiding in. Yeah. Nonetheless, have a very good day, everybody, and see you until the next time. This is Movie Master, signing off.